Hello, everyone, and my sincere apologies for keeping everybody waiting for 5 minutes, and those joining us online, welcome back. So I want to welcome everybody here tonight and let you know that we are very happy that with our roads department that cleared our roads wonderfully over the last couple of days and allowed us to keep moving. And to let you know that if you do have a cell phone or another electronic device, if you could please set it to silent or vibrate, and that all of the comments that are made at this meeting are audio and video recorded. We're now live streaming our meetings, so we do have some audience from around the town. And the recordings shall form part of the record, which will be retained according to the town's retention bylaw, and you can get more information about that from the clerk's service. So we'll get started, and always the first thing on our agendas is open forum, and I just wondered if there was any people that signed up for the open forum, and we'll have that done first. It's great to see so many people out tonight. And I want to thank those who came to the open house on Sunday and participated. It was great to have such a good crowd out to that as well. Thank you. So we have one item on the open forum tonight, and that is Mr. Gary Vi, and it's regarding item F1, which is the Ice Corp pledge. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Vi.
Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and people from Council. I'm a director. My name's Gary Vi. I'm a director for Innisfil Community Events, and I'm just here to speak to the letter that I think you already have a copy of and everything, and it's regarding our pledges that we've made to the town. And there's just a few items that I'd like to just go over or address just to clarify things. First of all, this was under direction of the town that we changed our pledge. The town asked for a letter, we gave a letter, and basically we want to fulfill our pledges to the town as much as we possibly can. And also we recognize that the money that we do give to the town is up to council and the town to do as they see fit. And I hope that clears up a couple of the things that are floating around on social media, etc.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vi.
If there's any questions?
Okay. Any questions? We don't normally do questions at open forum, but I will just take a moment to thank you for that clarification, and also to thank Ice Corp. You guys are always there. You've raised significant funds for this community. You run the Santa Claus Parade with all by volunteers, and you're totally appreciated in this community, and I please hope that you don't feel any less appreciated. No,
we do. That's why we do it. We enjoy it, and we enjoy putting on the events that we do, and also giving the money back to the town as much as we can.
Thank you so much for your support. That was all we had on open forum tonight, so we'll move right into the approval of the agenda. We've got a large one tonight, and there's no additions at this point, so we'll ask for a mover and a seconder to the agenda as was printed, and that's moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All in favor? And that's carried. Next, I would ask members of council to disclose any pecuniary interests that if you have any, on the council agenda. And Councillor Waters?
Item H2.
I'm going to put your mic on.
Item H2, I have conflict with the consultant as my wife works for them.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Any other disclosures of pecuniary interest on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, if one does catch your attention, please just let the clerks know at the time and we can take care of it at that time. So the next is presentations and petitions, and we're welcoming the brand new Library Board Chair, Monica Goodfellow, and the Innisfil Library Board presentation. Welcome, Chair Goodfellow.
Good evening, Mayor Dolan, Deputy Mayor Davidson, members of council, staff, and members of the audience. My name is Monica Goodfellow, and I'm pleased to be here tonight on behalf of the Innisfil Public Library Board, both past and present, and staff to recognize the accomplishments of an Innisfil resident who has made a huge difference to our community and whose lifetime of dedication to the library service has had an impact which reaches far beyond the boundaries of our town. On Thursday, January 31st, the Ontario Public Library Association hosted its annual awards ceremony as part of the Ontario Library Association's 2019 Super Conference. The final award of the night was the OPLA Lifetime Achievement Award. This is presented to a library staff member who has given lifelong service to the profession and who has contributed significantly to the growth and innovation of public libraries within Ontario. Requirements for the award include a demonstrated commitment to the broader library community, the implementation of creative and innovative ideas which have been adopted by other libraries, proof of positive support for the profession, and evidence of having earned the respect of the profession, their colleagues, and their community. This year's recipient was acknowledged for her dedication to providing the best possible library service throughout her library career. She epitomizes creativity, innovation, and leadership. Her boundless energy, strength of character, and ability to see potential have inspired a collaborative team who work to embrace challenges, to champion her vision, and to strengthen our community. Her curiosity, willingness to experiment, and her ability to learn from her glorious failures have resulted in a strong and constantly evolving library system. As an early adopter of the makerspace movement, she embraced the hacker ethic and created a model for makerspaces used today in many other public libraries. She has delighted in sharing these discoveries with libraries across Canada, the United States, and Europe. Yet the final factor in the decision-making process was the outpouring of support from a wide range of supporters, including the library, the board, the municipality, to academic partners, external consultants, other library CEOs, and most importantly from the community where she lives and serves, welling up from the foundation of her years of extraordinary leadership and relationship building. Comments from the supporters included, "Not with 3 lifetimes do I believe that I could achieve the same level of community transformation that we can trace back to her efforts. She has made invaluable contributions to our understanding of the importance and the role of public libraries in Ontario. Her enthusiasm is infectious. She is CEO for one of the single most innovative public libraries in Ontario. She is highly respected for her skills. If you knew and felt the influence she has had, not only on the town of Innisfil, but with many other libraries, your decision in choosing her as a recipient would be far easier. Though you may not have had the opportunity to work with her directly, this community will feel her legacy for years to come, not only in our state-of-the-art library system, but in her role in creating a strategic vision for Innisfil that sees us as a community dedicated to health and wellness, that embraces arts, culture, and heritage, and is synonymous with innovation. It is now my distinct honor to present to you the winner of the 2018 Ontario Public Library's Lifetime Achievement, recently retired CEO of the Innisfil Idea Lab and Library, our very own Miss Susan Downs.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wanted to thank Susan on her award, congratulate her, and innovation and leadership are two words that describe you. You have been admired and respected by not only your staff and your board, and it has been my privilege to be on the library board for the past term and this current term. So congratulations and thank you for all that you've done for Innisfil Libraries and putting us on the map.
Thank you. I will, the recommendation is on the screen then, that the presentation be received, and that's moved by Councillor Orsatti and seconded by Councillor Ices. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you so much, and thanks to the library board members for coming out as well. Next, we have another delegation, and this is the Cortel Group. Welcome, and whenever you're ready, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Your Worship, Mayor Dolan, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. I act for Cortel, a company that I have represented for 30 years. I'm here tonight, and Cortel is the owner of the lands that surround the campus node, which is on the second slide up here, located on the 6th line near Yonge Street. And you'll see a little red blob, at least it is in my paper, it's probably big on the screen, that shows you where the campus node is. 100 acres of the campus node are owned by the town of Innisfil and were given to you for institutional purposes by my client Cortel 10 years ago, which in my experience is a very unusual thing for a developer to do. You haven't gotten anything yet, and you gave away 100 acres for some institutional uses. And 50 acres of that use was for the purpose of a satellite hospital for the Royal Victoria Hospital. Now, and this happened 10 years ago. Now, we're here tonight because a decision on site selection for the RVH is imminent. And there's only one site in Innisfil, it'll be our submission tonight, that can deliver to RVH a site with sanitary servicing available in a 2 to 3 year time frame. And that site is the town-owned campus node location. Now, it's only possible, however, that premise can only be achieved if you are prepared to consider new technology, which is proven, in the same way that you adopted, in my view, very progressively, the Uber technology for your transit system rather than doing the conventional municipal model of public transit. Now, the exciting thing about what we're proposing tonight is it doesn't just bring sanitary servicing to a site for the new satellite hospital for the RVH. It can advance sanitary servicing for the Innisfil Heights Simcoe 400 employment corridor. It can advance sanitary servicing for the Churchill community and the septic systems that they have. And this can all be done if we are prepared to consider a new technology which is less dependent on transporting sewage long distances. It's at-source sewage treatment located at the hospital. Tonight, and we are, I think, it's interesting when you sit on a body like a council, you get to make generational decisions. And there are 2 generational decisions in front of you tonight. One is, do you want the RVH Satellite Hospital in Innisfil? We're going to give you a way to get that. I think that's an important thing for Simcoe County, and it's important for Innisfil. And secondly, you are going to make a decision, if you're prepared to consider what we're offering to you tonight, for a different kind of sanitary sewage treatment plant that in our submission is more environmentally friendly, does a better job, and is not going to put a further load on Lake Simcoe at much less cost than a conventional system and the miles of pipe you would need to service this community and the campus node. And my clients' lands surround the campus node. Tonight with me are several experts in their field. Michael Bissett, to my immediate right, land use planner. Mark Palmer, an engineer with Greenland. And finally, Craig Kennedy, who's going to explain this exciting new technology to you, and the company is called Nutera. I will have a few remarks at the end where I'd like to outline for you what we would ask you to do tonight, but I'd like you to hear their presentation and ask any questions you think would help you answer the questions and propositions I put to you.
Good evening, I'm Michael Bissett from Bousfields. I'll be very brief as I know we have a limited time. I just wanted to go through the map above you, as you can see on the screen, and just speak to it. There has been a well-established vision in Innisfil for decades, and part of that vision includes the GO station, which is at the 6th line in the Metrolinx corridor at Alcona South. This location has been approved by Metrolinx and will service new population within Alcona South. That vision also includes Innisfil Heights Employment District along the Highway 400 corridor, which has also the planned interchange along 6th line at the 400. Recent updates have shown that as a cloverleaf. We believe a full interchange is the most beneficial to alleviate traffic conditions, and we believe that we can move that forward in the near future. Another fundamental component of the vision includes the RVH South Campus, which Alan indicated, which is at this location here in the red location here just west of Yonge Street on the south side of 6th line. Another location, which that location has been shown for decades within the master servicing plan and has been planned, and as Alan noted, the lands have been donated. All these components are recognized in the official plan for the town of Innisfil. The most recent Outplace Innisfil provides policies to allow for this location to occur. And while recent updates to the master servicing strategy have presented shifting servicing from 6th line to Innisfil Beach Road, and as well the 400 interchange going from a cloverleaf to, from a full interchange to a cloverleaf may have begin to sort of unravel what this vision has begun to accomplish. We're here to inform council, as Alan had noted, that there's an opportunity to achieve the campus node here regardless, based on this new technology for servicing, and to assist in assuring the RVH South Campus can locate in Innisfil as envisioned. And just without further ado, I'll advance the slide with the, you have to advance that slide. You advance the slide just one more. I have, is it on? So the lands have been donated, as we noted. The lands are in a central location in regards to existing hospitals in Innisfil. They're located near the GO station, on arterial roads, as well as with access to the Highway 400 interchange. And they're supported by the official plan. The location does meet the desirability criteria established by the RVH, and we are here to present how they can be serviced in the time frame, i.e. before 2031. And Mark Palmer from Greenland is going to go into the servicing solution, and then Newterra will come up here to discuss the technology as well. Some reason there's a problem advancing slides tonight, but we'll get there. There we go.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll stay here. I'll just stay here. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Michael. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. I'm going to start off with a bit of a journey about the 6th line history, so just bear with me. So in 2012, a master servicing plan was prepared by Cortel with the knowledge and the participation of the town of Innisfil. And the purpose of the MSP, as we called it, was to connect the Highway 400 employment lands with the campus node and to extend further east to the proposed 6th line GO station, which has now been approved. The 6th line servicing corridor proposal would also connect the proposed Bel Air Estates community at the time, and it's now under construction. In 2015, the In-Services Board and the Innisfil Council agreed with the importance of the 6th line MSP solution from 2012, and both bodies passed resolutions to have the 6th line servicing corridor the solution and to be operational by 2018. The endorsements also included an investment to complete a 6th line Class EA road improvement study, and that's been completed as well. However, in the late summer of last year, In-Services and Innisfil finalized an MSP update, and which did include the 6th line. However, Cortel, we were not aware at the beginning of the initiation of this, and we weren't involved in the process until the final public meeting steps. As such, the 2008 MSP update does not anymore contemplate near-term servicing for the campus node or Churchill via the 6th line corridor solution from 2012. So there's many questions that have been asked, and we're still waiting for answers to some of those questions, most all of those questions. Tonight, it's Cortel's opinion that the preferred alternative from the town's 2018 MSP, it contradicts previously passed resolutions that from In-Services and the Innisfil Council. In addition, the 2000 MSP update proposes a more costly and conventional business-as-usual solution. However, we do have a positive message later, if you bear with me as I move forward, about where we are now with the campus node vision. So, also with the MSP update, some environmental concerns we've recognized. It's a gray engineered solution, so not much innovation in terms of green infrastructure, and we'll talk about that. The servicing piping is almost 7 kilometers away. It does convey some sewage from the Nottawasaga River watershed to the Lakeshore plant, and it's discharged into Lake Simcoe. And there's been a number of opportunities identified for local water reuse, and I think we've hit that on the head of the nail with our presentation and where we're going. So the proposal tonight, we want to present New Terra, a new wastewater treatment system that has been constructed in Ontario, and Craig will embellish further on that. But tonight is to present a gray and green infrastructure solution, and it's an Innisfil solution, and it can be constructed quickly and cost effectively. Oh, we're good? Okay, got it. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. So this slide is just a recap about back to 2012, what was on the table, what was approved by the previous council and In-Services. So looking along the 6-line corridor, it was servicing employment lands to the west, extending past the campus node and servicing further east to the Bel Air subdivision. We've also, for a number of years, and this has been reiterated actually recently, I have an email that I'd like to share with the clerk. This is a group from the Netherlands called Water Alliance. The Water Alliance team is one of the most innovative teams in Europe building ecosystem clusters. They're in waiting. They want to work with the town of Innisfil. And we've also had a long-standing relationship with the University of Guelph. They've actually worked with us on updating the documents and the design work that we've done as late. And we've had discussions with WaterTap. That's the accelerator hub of Ontario through the previous government. We've had meetings with them, and they're very interested to be involved in this ecosystem. And when I say an ecosystem, the campus is focusing on the hospital, yes, but the ecosystem, the lands available, create a much broader opportunity. So Innisfil is developing a reputation now, as Alan mentioned, about being very innovative with smart network technologies, and it's been the well-received Uber public transit program. The Cortel campus vision tonight will strengthen this mission statement and be serviced by a state-of-the-art wastewater system. Craig will get into that a bit in more detail. The solution that we're presenting tonight is also a modular solution that can match wastewater flows from the campus node and accommodate the growth sequencing with the Highway 400 and the Churchill growth opportunities. The first table on this slide in the upper left basically just talks about how we've looked at the engineering, how we can service this site on a phased basis, and looking at the campus node, and also bringing offline aging septic systems in Churchill as part of that first phase of the development. The second table, it's very exciting actually. We can reuse 50% of the treated wastewater from this vision with the wastewater solution for the new hospital, which is something you cannot do with the current solution in front of you through the MSP update. And to round off, the third table shows how the local aquifer will not be impacted. So we've looked at the system at hand, and there is capability to access the water from the Churchill aquifer and service the Churchill and the campus node lands. So again, we take water from the watershed and we leave it back in the watershed, the Nottawasaga watershed. All right, so finally there's other benefits I'd like to highlight tonight about this new vision of the campus node. First off, I mentioned it is a gray and green solution. I'll talk about the green component shortly. But the new technology that New Terra has developed and implemented does deal with nutrients and emerging contaminants or pharmaceuticals, and Craig will explain that a bit in more detail. The at-source treatment eliminates the need for, it conveys raw sewage. It eliminates the passage or conveyance of raw sewage through long pipelines, thus eliminating the potential for breakages and spills that could impact the local groundwater system. The back-end green infrastructure, which is what Greenland is being involved with, is an effluent polishing wetland. This is a system that's been developed with our partners in Western Canada, in the Calgary area, how it can be adapted as a polishing back end to the wastewater solution so we can actually infiltrate the wastewater effluent back into the groundwater. But we've actually looked at oversizing this facility, and if previous members of council remember, we've looked at oversizing this to accommodate the South Innisfil Creek drain system. There are nuisance flooding issues. We can oversize this complex to deal with flooding as well. And last, as I mentioned, we are going to eliminate, there is the opportunity to take the aging septic systems in Churchill offline, and that's actually a benefit to the Innisfil source water protection needs of the community. All right, so to summarize, the proposed servicing solution tonight, we're going to again mention it provides the highest possible water quality effluent. We're using 50% of the water that can be generated from the treated wastewater for the hospital needs. We're keeping the water within the watershed. There's no Lake Simcoe connection. Recently, I attended a meeting with members of Parliament, and the manager from the Conservation Authority was there talking about the target that through the renewal of the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan is coming up for renewal. And there's lots of challenges trying to achieve that target. So tonight, this solution actually helps with that. We're taking wastewater effluent away from the Lake Simcoe watershed, which is a plus, as we look at renewing the whole Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. All right, so finally, I think tonight I'm trying to highlight the high points of this in terms of this is not a business as usual solution. This solution that we're presenting has many net public benefits. It focuses on the environment as well, but it's also a gray and green infrastructure solution, but it's an Innisfil solution, very unique, and with a number of partners in waitings from Europe and Canada who want to work with our team. And I'll pass it on now to Craig from Newterra.
Thank you, Mark. Mayor Dolan, Deputy Mayor Davidson, members of council. As Mark mentioned, the real crux of servicing this development with wastewater relies on a Newterra modular and decentralized wastewater treatment plant. So at Newterra, our preferred wastewater treatment solution is the membrane bioreactor. Essentially, we are taking the same treatment processes that nature does over the course of years. So biological degradation of wastewater by bacteria, filtration through sand and rock, and condensing that down to a matter of hours with biological degradation in a biological aerated reactor and filtration through a ultrafiltration membrane. So the Ministry of the Environment recognizes MBR wastewater treatment as the best available technology, and Newterra's MBR systems are best in class. Currently in Ontario, we have 18 environmental compliance approvals granted by the MECP, and we have 13 or more in various stages of approval. Our approvals cover private, commercial, and municipal clients. Some of these plants we operate ourselves, others are operated by municipalities or third-party operators. The Newterra membrane bioreactor system produces a clean, clear, solids-free, bacteria-free, and oxygen-rich treated effluent suitable for either safe discharge to the environment or reuse in irrigation, toilet flushing, and other applications to reduce the amount of fresh water used and the strain put on a drinking water aquifer. It can also be configured for nutrient reduction, to remove nitrates, which can contaminate drinking water aquifers, and to remove phosphorus, which can cause algae blooms and other issues in surface waters. So with our modular approach, we install all of the treatment equipment inside of a pre-manufactured enclosures. Easy to ship to site, install on site with minimal on-site work. This approach allows us also to easily expand a treatment plant's capacity by adding additional treatment trains. And treatment capacity is added only as needed to service a growing development. There's no need for a major initial capital outlay to build infrastructure for many years of projected growth. You simply add treatment capacity as it's required. Also being an entirely enclosed system, there is no noise, no odor to disturb neighbors. Our closest system to a residence is about 13 meters from the closest house, which has had 0 complaints over the last 10 years. The addition of the wetlands to the MBR filtration, as proposed by Greenland, would really distinguish the town of Innisfil and this project as true leaders in environmental stewardship. This is what infrastructure can and should look like for environmentally responsible growth. And with that, I'll pass it over to Alan for some closing remarks.
So, of course, we'd like to canvass and respond to any questions you might have, and the panel's available to do that. I'd like you, if you could put up slide 13 for me. I think that's two on. Keep going. There. So that is the resolution that we're requesting of council tonight. We hope we've convinced you. If you don't feel you've had enough information, we'd ask you to pass an alternative resolution, which is to hold a special meeting, public meeting, with a longer period of time, if you need it, to ask whatever questions you and/or the public need to have answered in a 2-week time frame. And I'm sorry that there's urgency on this, but we've been told that RVH is very close to a decision. And my experience, I have a lot of experience with infrastructure. And funnily enough, you'd think with really big decisions that you have lots of time. My experience is that big decisions, I'm vice chairman of the TTC, I've lectured on infrastructure, and my experience of big infrastructure decisions is they happen rapidly. And it's my view that you're in a better position to respond if you're able to respond quickly so that we don't miss the bus with RVH. We want to make sure we're there in front of them with a proposal that works and gives them what they need. And one of the things they've told us they need is servicing in a 2 to 3 year time frame. And I have been assured, because of this technology, we can do that. So any questions, please ask away.
Thank you very much for the delegation. Appreciate that. And I'll open it up to council for questions. Before I do that, though, Mr. Palmer, you had said that there was a number of questions that you'd been trying to get answers for, that you've been unable to get answers for, and I wondered if you would let us know what those questions are so that we can have staff respond.
There's a number of questions through the Class EA process, the filing of the ESR documents, so we're still awaiting through that process to have questions answered involving the Ministry of the Environment.
So your questions are to be answered by MOECP or by town staff? I got the impression maybe there was some answers to some questions you were waiting for from town staff.
The questions were about the comparison of the solutions for costing compared to some of the information we presented tonight. So there were the previous resolutions that we had presented, or council resolved to support the previous 6-line solution. So we presented comments back through that process, the EA process, to again revisit and remind the parties to say that there was this other information, and we're asking for clarification why this change of direction when the solution we're presenting tonight is cost effective, it is more timely, and then the environmental concern issues as well. The solution tonight is a green infrastructure solution, as I mentioned. So does that have any bearing on the decision of the final EA process? So.
Okay, and then just before I go to council, so as far as, because I've been here for a number of years and was around with the original MSP, and we went out to tender on that particular project, and it came in way more than we could certainly afford, and I believe, and I'll have staff go on from here either. I see Mr. Malcolm's here, from the president and CEO of In-Services, but we did put concerted effort through council into trying to raise the funds required to put the pipes in the ground where we were going to. So that's my recollection of the reason for going a different direction, but I'm certainly happy to hear more about this, this more greener option.
And if I just may, Your Worship, the solution at hand was longer piping associated with the 6-line campus node servicing solution, but what we're presenting tonight is a completely different vision of that in terms of the pipes are not as long, they're more contained, and also within the Nottawasaga watershed. So the cost from before it's an apples and oranges in somewhat comparison if further information and opportunities there to talk further about this. So.
Thank you. Okay. Now I'll go to council for questions and comments. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think there's a few people here are not surprised that I would endorse something like this. It's basically, it was Lake Simcoe that got me into politics 16 years ago, approximately. My concerns for the lake and with the development on the lake at that time. In the solution that we're looking at for the RVH, you say that the time frame is 2 to 3 years to get construction going and get this plant up and running, which would be a great solution. I understand that hospitals use a lot of water. Can you clarify that? And the consumption of water, like how this would reduce it?
Well, I can speak to, I've done a little reading. In the average home, 50% of water consumption is toilets. And if you could reduce the water consumption by toilets and urinals in a hospital by 50%, for example, the hospital's running costs have been reduced, and it's a more efficient use of water. I'm astonished by this technology because I've seen this use of reused water in irrigation in Florida, but I've never seen, because of the single institutional use, you're more economically able to plumb an institutional building than you would be able to plumb homes. You'd need a separate water system if you had homes, 2 systems for the toilets and for the balance, but it'd be much easier to do in a public institution like a university or a hospital. So that we'll get you the stats if you want them on water consumption, but the fact that whatever consumption is taking place, we can get 50% of it back means everybody's better off as a society.
Follow-up. Thank you. And of course, I understand that this water would not be entering Lake Simcoe, so it would help with our Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, what we're working with currently with the current government in enhancing Lake Simcoe, taking people off septics. Another concern that was brought up tonight was the 6-line interchange, and I think that's a major concern of this council. If I understand correctly, in our official plan, our master plan, that the 6th line is a priority for this council to get it done and to get Cloverleaf put in there. And if we're going to have Metrolinx putting a GoLink station or Metrolink station at the opposite end, it's only well understood that these two are connected. So I think we need to get that message out that the 6-line interchange is a priority for this municipality. And I think with that 6th line, if we go along with this plan of water and wastewater, we can enhance the 6-line interchange to attract more innovative companies that may want to jump on board with this. So if I could get a copy of this presentation tonight, I would like it so that I can bring it forward to the public in a more positive manner. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. In my previous life, I worked at the Court Right Centre for Conservation, where we had to use innovative technologies around wastewater in 2 separate locations, both for the Court Right Centre and for the Earth Ranger Centre. Court Right used an internal wetland polishing system to finish off its water to extend its septic system, and the Earth Ranger Centre used a biomembrane. So I'm just kind of curious, are you familiar with the biomembrane system? Is this similar to the biomembrane system that the Earth Ranger Centre used, where they actually can recycle their water and reuse for toilets?
Yeah, so our membrane bioreactor is essentially, it's an activated sludge process followed by an ultrafiltration membrane. So I'm not familiar with the biomembrane system that you're referring to. Okay. But if it could possibly be some sort of fixed film treatment system, or it could be, similar to the membrane bioreactor.
Okay, thanks. Just, if you don't mind, a couple other questions. On the polishing, you do refer a natural wetland, so I assume that's the effluent coming from the waste treatment system going into the Nottawasaga system.
It's actually so what we're proposing is biofiltration. So the effluent stream would enter into a cell of the wetland complex for biofiltration for groundwater recharge. So there's the cooling effect. Again, it is replenishing the groundwater supply. But the stormwater component of this, we've looked at the whole watershed unit, the headwater unit, that this complex can accommodate separate stormwater treatment as well. So there's the opportunity for reuse of that water. We looked at a number of the CanWet technology. The CanWet technology is what was used for the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. Greenland developed that, is continuing to develop that with the University of Guelph. We've looked at the permits to take water in this area as part of original work that we did. There is an opportunity for reusing reclaimed wastewater or effluent water and also stormwater reuse as well. So the whole aspect of this was really looking at the headwaters, the drainage area coming to this point of contact where the campus node is, and looking at the water balance. And as the mayor mentioned before, the previous piping solution for the 6th line was going to the Lakeshore plant. The pipes were longer, it was very costly. But tonight we're presenting a new vision. A new vision is to stay within the Nottawasaga River watershed and not go to Lake Simcoe.
I like that idea of staying within the Nottawasaga, because that's always an issue when you're transporting water, whether it's clean or wastewater from watershed to watershed. You talked about temperatures of water effluent, that by the time it gets to Georgian Bay will be normalized. What is the impact of temperatures on the existing streams and wildlife in those streams? Will the temperature be significantly higher? Will it impact those streams before it gets to Georgian Bay?
There are no impacts because of the warm effluent from the plant. We're looking at biofiltration. So again, we're putting it back into the groundwater. But the surface water bypass for stormwater, we would look at that from a cooling perspective, obviously, because it is a cold water system. So designing that, and as I mentioned, there are these constructed facilities. We have partners in Western Canada that have done this in the Calgary area. And I think tonight Craig was also going to mention there is the opportunity to do a tour of one of his plants. We can also present further some of the facilities that have been constructed in Western Canada that are a really perfect fit for the complement of the Nuterra technology. So.
One last questions. Hospitals have pathogens, and can the system deal with pathogens that are created in a hospital situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So the membrane bioreactor actually has a couple of advantages over more conventional wastewater treatment approaches when it comes to hospital wastewater specifically. We actually have a longer residence time inside the reactor, which gives the biology a much longer time to break down larger, more complex molecules that are in pharmaceuticals, endocrine disruptors, and other sort of emerging contaminants. So we have much better treatment rates for such emergent contaminants than more traditional wastewater treatment. As well, I mentioned our ultrafiltration membranes have a 4-log reduction for E. coli. And then we would typically, in surface water applications, follow that up with UV disinfection. So at the end of our pipe, discharging to the environment, we will consistently and solidly read 0 E. coli.
Just a general comment then, is that I think for Innisfil, this makes a perfect solution just because we're so spread out all over the place, and running pipes from a single is really difficult and expensive. So I think a distributed system makes a lot of sense and allows that development to happen around the county.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Councillor Fowler?
More of a question, actually. I understand the cost effectiveness is the big thing it's being brought up by a lot of people tonight. We understand the cost that's being done for the renovation of the water treatment plant. By comparison, starting off, what would be a sizable comparison? Would it be a quarter to a half price initially with the nodes that you're putting in? And as time progresses, how easy is it to add in the additional units as required?
I'm not familiar with the cost scale of the renovations being done on, or the retrofit being done on the existing plant. However, our approach our modular approach is cost competitive with the more traditional. We call it stick-built, poured-in-place type of plants. As well, there's the deferment of cost over time by the sort of the modular phasing up of a system. So, if ultimately we were to treat 10,000 cubic meters per day, in a more traditional approach, you would put in a plant that would treat 10,000 cubic meters per day. However, just this first phase of Hospital plus Churchill, we're looking at a little more than 1,000 cubic meters per day. So we would focus in on phase one, which would maybe be 30% of the total cost, the total build out. There's some headworks and some upfront infrastructure that we might include along with the additional treatment trains. And then every treatment train after that, could be 10% cost increase, but you're deferring that capital over time, 5 years out, 10 years out, 15 years out, until you actually need the treatment. As well, you end up with a treatment system that's actually properly designed for the actual flows that you're seeing, so it's easier to operate. A lot of times with large infrastructure, you get into the situation where you're designing for the population 30 years out, and then you're running a plant at far below its actual design flow rates, which can be a challenge.
What are the lifespans of the units currently? Like if you put, say, 3 units in, like, because when you revamp the plant, you're looking at, like as you said, a generational choice. You're looking 30, 40 years down the road with the expected growth of a community. If you have the units and hypothetically one malfunctions, what would be the average lifespan before a situation would arise where it would need to be replaced or repaired?
Yep. So our systems are modular and manufactured in a manufacturing facility. However, they are designed to be replaceable and refurbished just as a normal, typical municipal plant would be. So we design with room and access in order to service and repair pumps and blowers, bits and pieces. So essentially, it is a permanent facility, and you would repair and replace individual pieces of equipment, as you go.
Okay, one last question then, if I may. What you're drawing from the water, the remnants of it, how is it disposed of?
So that would be the waste-activated sludge, as we would call it. So as you have solids and water coming into the system, you're bringing clean water out of the system. Some of the solids are degraded by the biology and they off-gas as CO2, but you're left with a certain amount of inert solids that you need to get rid of. So what we can do with those is we would typically dewater them to reduce the volume, and then they could go to landfill, they could go for further processing, they could go to composting to be turned into Class A or B biosolids, which can then be applied to land as fertilizers. So there's a couple different options on how much treatment you want and whether you want to make a product out of it or if the amounts are small enough that you just send to landfill.
Would be cost effective, then it would actually promote income in a sense, right? With using the waste to sell it to actually generate income. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. That actually turns a waste source into a product.
Councillor Sadi.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not sure how many questions you want this evening, especially with it being a delegation. I'll just quickly go over mine. I'm intrigued by the technology. I like the idea that it's a green solution. And of course, we like the idea of anything that is more cost effective. But I need a lot more information. So I like the idea of an additional meeting where we can have more questions, that it's a different vision and we need better understanding of that. I would want questions, as Councillor Fowler had said, the lifespan of the modules. I know you spoke about replacement or refurbishing, but more information at that time, also about how you handle system failures. And knowledge of the system, because you said that it would be operated by the municipality or a third party. So if it was the municipality, then how they would have the knowledge of the system, the monitoring and the training. So there's a lot more information that I need, and before I couldn't not endorse this tonight, but I'm intrigued and I'd like to hear more.
I could speak to that. In terms of a public meeting, we were envisaging, if that's the way council wants to go, that would happen in a framework of 2 weeks, because we're very concerned that we're going to lose the timing with RVH. If you can achieve a special council meeting or add a session, a long session, to a meeting you've already got established, I think that's the only way that we can be certain that we'll meet the RVH timeline.
So we'll see where council goes on that, but certainly this whole report also has to go to staff and have them look at it and bring comments back to us. This council certainly wouldn't endorse something without our own staff even looking at it. But also, just to be clear, this council does not make a decision on where the campus node will be. We are grateful to have one seat on a committee that is looking at recommending to the board, who will make the Royal Victoria Hospital Board, who will make the ultimate decision as to where the next campus will be. We have one seat, as does the City of Barrie, as does Bradford, West Gwillimbury, and as does the County of Simcoe, and we're grateful for that. But I just don't want to give anybody the idea that somehow, if we endorse something, that's going to be where it is. So, Mr. Rayner, did I see your hand?
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. In the interest of time, I won't address all of the comments made in the delegation today. I imagine there's a staff report that will be coming forward. But I did want to make clear, and I think for New Terra's benefit, we wouldn't want to prejudice them in any procurement process. Often it's the case that if the person that helps you design the RFP isn't allowed to actually bid on the RFP ultimately. So I think we want to be conscious of the procurement implications in this case. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'm sorry, there's more questions. Councillor Payne was next.
Most of my questions were answered. Thank you very much for the group. I think it's a brilliant idea, and it's something that I think that is a good thing for Innisfil. So we'll have to just work on that. I don't know how large this unit is and how large the area is. So are we just talking one system? Like one, like just...
The wastewater treatment plant?
Right, yes.
I think for the phase one, if I recall correctly, it would be something on the order of 36 feet by 110 feet would be the footprint of the treatment for phase one. So 1,200 cubic meters per day of wastewater.
Okay, so I'm not mathematically inclined, so you have to help me here. Are we talking one system or two or four?
Oh, so it would be divided up into multiple treatment trains for redundancy purposes.
Okay, so I was sort of expecting one big plant, but it's not the case then.
So it would be one plant, one facility. But it would have inside of it sort of multiple treatment trains with some shared equipment as well, such as the sludge dewatering system that I had mentioned.
Oh, okay, thank you very much.
It's less of a standard box of a thing that's just repeated and more of a modular facility that's constructed at site.
Thank you.
Your Worship, I just may add, there is the New Terra website. There's quite a lot of information, videos of an existing municipal plant. So please, I encourage staff to look at that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment. I'm also intrigued by always new technology, and I think it's about time that we come up with some new technology for treating wastewater. It's, the technology is out there now. It's been here forever, so it's really intriguing. But I have to agree with Councillor Orsatti. I think there's a whole lot more than what meets the eye, and I need to know a whole lot more about this system. And I'm certainly open to whether it's a public meeting or a 2-hour meeting, whatever it takes to get educated and informed on this. And I hope that council thinks the same way, because I look forward to that. And really want to, it's an opportunity, and I look forward to the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. I did have a whole list of questions here, but if we're just receiving this, I don't have as much concern to ask every one of them. I did have a couple of questions, though. I did look at the New Terra website, and it's obviously very interesting with the bioreactor technology. It seems to be a lot of northern camp solutions, seasonal RV parks, temporary military bases, and mining operations. I couldn't find any commercial applications. I couldn't find any healthcare facilities or educational campuses, nor did I find any full residential community applications, like say the 900 existing residents in Churchill who would be on this base. If this was something to even be considered, who would be paying for those sewers just to the fourth line from this location? If there's, and I do have a few other things, but just who, you know, big picture, obviously, if we're going to look at the service Churchill, then who's paying for those pipes as well, too? So to me, effluent, Councillor Waters mentioned the effluent and the temperature. And if it's traveling 155 kilometers to Georgian Bay, it would be normalized or cool enough not to impact the aquatic life. To me, the Lake Simcoe-based system is only 7 kilometers away. I don't know that 150 kilometers is necessarily as it put good planning by sending effluent 150 kilometers away. So I guess my question is there a plan for the sewers? Who would pay for those? And I have one question about water after that, if I could.
Yeah, just to answer the first question, we definitely at Newterra got our start with wastewater treatment supporting the mining and oil and gas industries. And we really took a lot of what we learned there in the modular decentralized application of wastewater treatment and are bringing that to the private development and municipal markets. So there's a wonderful municipal system in St. Thomas that again I would welcome council, and we could potentially set up a visit to go and tour that plant. And it's actually in a sort of a similar circumstance where it is servicing a new development, as well as they took a bunch of existing homes that were on septic systems and brought them off of those aging septic systems to the decentralized plant. I believe in that case they had a grant in order to pay for the collection system piece for that. But again, that is a system that we would love for you to come down and take a look at.
And through you, Your Worship, just to the question about the traveling path for the effluent, it's proposed as biofiltration in the complex, so replenishing the groundwater aquifer. So it's not a source stream, surface water stream, meandering its way down through Innisfil and through to Wasaga Beach. So just to be clear, that's the purpose of the back-end wetlands.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Just to follow up on that, as you did allude, you're looking at using the existing Churchill well or the aquifer-based system. That would be the drinking water source as well for this entire campus node? Is this the intent?
Yeah, we've looked at this as far as looking at servicing the campus node and the Churchill, the continuing servicing Churchill and the campus node. There is adequate supply from the aquifer to do that, yes. Not the existing well may have to have some upgrades with pumping, but the well itself can accommodate the campus node, the water source.
Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Your Worship. As Mr. Malcolm is here, I know that we're currently just going through a process with the Churchill water system. Do we have the capacity to put the entire 6th line and the Innisfil Heights as well as Churchill, or continuing with the Churchill development as well with that upgrade?
With the upgrade to the pollution control plant, we're looking at increasing the size of the plant to accommodate the future growth of those areas that you mentioned.
No, sorry, I was talking about the drinking water supply at the Churchill upgrade that's going on right now. Would that system there be able to accommodate continued growth in Churchill as well as the campus node and into the Innisfil Heights?
Through the mayor, we'd have to check to see what the flows are and get back to you.
Through Your Worship, the proposal we have, we're not looking at servicing Innisfil Heights for that water supply system, so it's just the campus node in Churchill.
Yeah, and I think what the councillor's getting at is the reservoir that we're currently putting in Churchill.
There's only point I'd like to add is, if you think about water consumption, because of the system we're proposing, whatever water is being consumed is less than if it was being used from an original source and treating it. So if we're reusing 50% of wastewater, the demand for water from this development will be significantly less than it otherwise would have been on the Churchill well. And you can't look at traditional usage rates for an institutional building in assessing this proposal that we've made.
Thank you. I've just got a couple quick questions and a comment. So my first one is regarding the 18 ECAs that you currently have. And what is the largest capacity and how long has it been in production?
The largest capacity in Ontario is a plant that is 500 cubes per day, with the potential to expand out to, I think, 1,250 cubic meters per day. And it has been in production for just a little over a year at this point. That would be the longest standing plant that we have is about 9 years currently.
Thank you. So just a couple of quick comments, and the first one surrounds Churchill. And if anybody is watching from Churchill tonight, I just don't want them to be pulling their hair out because they just put in a brand new septic system, because in our MSP, there had been no, we really hadn't looked at taking Churchill off of septic systems till post-2031, and only then if required. So certainly the work around source water has been done there. We've done the septic inspections on every property within the WAPA A of any of the Churchill wells. So I can assure people in Churchill that their water supply and their source water protection is up to date, as is the, and at this point, their septic systems, and as I'm sure anybody would agree, because what you're suggesting is really just more of a higher level advanced septic system, but the ones that are currently a properly functioning septic system is no threat to drinking water. At least that's the stand taken by the local source protection committee. The other point out was, and I know and understand how much everybody loves Lake Simcoe, and I do too, but we do have two watersheds, and the Nottawasaga Valley watershed is also an important ecosystem, and it shouldn't be like, let's save Lake Simcoe by dumping everything into the Nottawasaga, because it already is the most impaired sub-watershed. The Innisfil Creek watershed in the Nottawasaga Valley is already the most impaired watershed in all of Simcoe County and certainly in our region. And you know, we've certainly in Cookstown have seen that by not being able, it doesn't have the assimilative capacity to increase the capacity of our wastewater treatment plant in Cookstown, and that is the same sub-watershed. So just a point there that and as far as the cross boundary, I would agree with Councillor Waters. It's not, if you can avoid it, great, but we already have cross boundary now by the Cookstown community is serviced by Lake Simcoe surface water treatment plant and is discharged into the Innisfil Creek. And the only other part was about the current MSP. So the plan right now, the Innisfil's Heights is in the Lake Simcoe watershed. So the plan that we have now currently is with all the pipes, and I'm not saying it's the right one or the wrong one, and I'm very intrigued by this, but it's taking water from Lake Simcoe and putting water back into Lake Simcoe. That was the intent under the master servicing plan. So having said all that, I cut off Councillor Ices before, and then we'll try to come up with a recommendation and see if we can give staff some direction here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I didn't have a whole lot to add to the discussion, other than I'm very intrigued with new technology, and sometimes you do get benefits by waiting. I know we get impatient with things. I would like to see this technology looked at regardless if the RVH South Campus comes to Innisfil, and because we obviously have other parts of the town that could use some servicing. So that would be my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just wanted to acknowledge the people from RVH and the board members that are here tonight, and thank them for coming and hearing this, and knowing that that we here in Innisfil are very, very much interested in being the host of the South Campus. So I wanted you to hear that from us directly. Now, having said that, we've got a recommendation. The recommendation on the staff recommendation is received for information, but I'm sensing there'll be maybe some amendments to that. And do I have anybody who's got an amendment? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Due to the urgency with RVH in the next few weeks in helping them make a decision, I know there's a lot of criteria to consider, but we'd love to see it here in Innisfil, that's for sure. So I'd like to have a recommendation go forward that the council moves forward with the continued presentation of this project within the next 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, so we have it handy to us. Also that the public at the same time be made aware of it. There's only one taxpayer, and if this can save on the cost of infrastructure for the town of Innisfil, save in cost to the hospital of RVH, I think we're moving in the right direction and listening to our taxpayers. So I'm going to ask council if they would, the amendment be that we move forward on this in the next 2 weeks with a special meeting of council, or I don't know if we can do a public workshop with council in attendance without reaching quorum, because I don't want to cross that line either. So I think the safest is maybe to have an emergency meeting of council so we can be brought to speed fully, be educated, and know what we're dealing with so we can assist with helping the decision for RVH to come to Innisfil.
Thank you. And can we add to that receive for information and forward to staff for report back on the information received? Okay, just reading here. Okay. Councillor Van Perkel.
Yeah, Your Worship, I think I would second that because I'm intrigued, and I would like to hear much more on this.
Okay, Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. I wonder if we wouldn't want to open this up a little bit more. First of all, we have to have a full public discussion on this topic, and I don't know why we're only we're broad stringing this to one technology. Maybe there are multiple technologies we haven't even looked at yet. I think we're all committed to the RVH and the opportunity for the campus node. The RVH decision won't be an impact for 10 years from now. That gives us multiple years to research to find the best technologies, the most cost-effective, and the best treatment as well, especially if we're talking about a hospital effluent. The chemicals that will be coming out of that building will need to be especially taken care of. So I don't know that just scoping it to one presentation and one bioreactor or one effluent treatment is appropriate, and to stuff it in such a quick time. Again, if RVH is going to make a decision, they're going to make a decision knowing that we will service that property at some to accommodate that. So I think that rushing this through is probably premature. So.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Rayner.
Thank you, Worship, members of council. A few comments. First of all, in terms of the timeline, I disagree with my colleague. I don't think there is a 2-week urgency. Certainly they can't speak for RVH and ought not to speak for RVH. I sit on the site selection committee, and I have no sense of that same urgency of 2 weeks. What I do know is that in a meeting with Cortel recently, staff offered to meet with the technical folks and review this in detail. That invitation has gone unanswered. We're still very interested in sitting down with them, and I think, frankly, RVH's technical folks at the same meeting that I was at was very interested in sitting down with them. So I'm not sure that a technical review can be done in time for an emergency meeting with council in 2 weeks. So I don't share the timeline concern, although we're happy to continue to move at council's pace. The second piece is I draw your attention, as I did, to the procurement policy and procurement bylaw. To the extent that council decides to engage with a direct vendor, you may be prejudicing their ability to bid on a future project. So I think, as Councillor Nicol noted, there are multiple providers of this. In fact, we know Georgian Downs has a provider of a plug-and-play solution. So I don't want to prejudice Nuterra. We're very interested in working with them, but important that we don't prohibit them by their engagement in advance of an RFP process too prematurely. Thirdly, as I said, staff are very interested in reviewing this detail. Staff both at the town as well as in services, who is your company that provides water and wastewater. They would be very much interested in sitting down and discussing the solution. They have done a number of, or quite extensive research into alternatives, and they would welcome the opportunity. I can speak behalf of the board to engage with that technology, but I think it's also important to note there are a number of key stakeholders in play here who would like to be a part of that process. Certainly the NVCA or the LSRCA, depending on which site we're talking about, would be interested in services, as I've mentioned. We have colleagues at MOECP who would be very interested. We'd like to know their perspective on this. As well as RVH, who obviously has a very vested interest in what servicing solutions are in play. So I think for those reasons, I'd actually prefer and recommend that the presentation be directed to staff for an investigation and a report back to council. Certainly we can do that as quickly as possible, but given the technical nature, we're going to have to review with our colleagues at In-Services in some detail about how quickly we can turn that. But certainly I think the first step is for you to have a staff report. With the greatest respect, council meetings are not for vendors to market their goods. I think we've done this once before in council, and we were conscious of turning over the council chamber to become a marketing machine for different new technologies. Certainly I get technology emails every day. I'm sure my colleagues do as well, with new projects that are out there. And I think Innisfil has demonstrated that they are very interested in innovation, and we know how to move from ideation to implementation, and we welcome the opportunity to sit down with this technology as well as others to review that and get a staff report back to you. We're sensing your urgency, Your Worship, and we're happy to do that as quickly as possible, but I think a 2-week timeline is bluntly unrealistic.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think Ms. Janice Scott is in the audience tonight, and I think she could clarify if there is an urgency within that a decision will be reached within the next 2 weeks as to a location. So I think she's be able to answer that question about the urgency if she can. Secondly, I don't mind putting an amendment forward that we get this to staff review it, and let's say if there's no urgency within the next 2 weeks, we move it to happen in the first part of April. Where this council can be educated and brought up to speed, and maybe at the end, in that delay of 4 or 5 weeks, other people can come forward with their concerns, or maybe with new technology other than this. But this has been proven. It's been supported by Environmental Defense and other environmental groups as being one of the most proactive methods for dealing with wastewater and water. And I think Innisfil wants to be a leader, so it's Mrs. Scott's in the audience, and I think she could clarify that urgency right now.
I think it's not really fair to ask for her to speak on behalf of the board, and unless she feels like she wants to, I would leave that up to you, Mrs. Scott.
Your Worship, members of council, perhaps as Ms. Scott considers this unusual request, I am quite confident in conveying to council and the public, and certainly Ms. Scott can correct me, as a member of the site selection committee for RVH's board, there will be no decision made on the final selection of the site within the next 2 weeks, and I'm quite confident in saying that. Thank you, Your Worship.
And I'm getting nods, so. Did you, Ms. Scott, please. Thank you very much. So with that then, if people want to read what's on the board now, and any questions or comments, Councillor Rossetti.
I think my question is that this was a quick presentation, so although it's one presentation, and our CAO may be saying that, there's opportunity for others, I'd like to know more about the technology, and maybe we have more questions. So it may be one. It doesn't mean that we're going to endorse it, but to hear more. So will we have that opportunity, my question, after staff does this report, or is it staff is going to give us a report and that's the end?
I would say that when the staff report comes back to this council, there would be a full discussion and full debate again at that point. Councillor Fowler?
Is it possible to add to the amendment that when we get the report back, that we have the alternative option as well to have a public forum so that the public can learn about the technology that will affect their homes and the actual hospital itself? The idea, don't get me wrong, I appreciate the fact that we have the people with the skills and whatnot to give us the information and to determine, break it down for so it's more manageable for us to understand, but I'm a man who gets elbow deep in everything. So if they may tell me something that I may disagree with, I'd like to be able to hear from the source directly as an alternative should I disagree with anything.
So we can make that, I think the first step is to allow staff to see what was presented to us tonight, allow them to dive into it, come back with a report that talks about, how this would fit in with Innisfil, or if it would fit in with Innisfil, and then we have that conversation. So it's, I think it's premature to suggest that we need to do that now. I think let's see what comes back first, and then we move forward with more direction. Every time we're given the material, then we give direction. Does that work, Councillor? Mr. Parkin.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just as well, if it does come back to council, when the report does come back to council, we do have opportunities through the regular procedural bylaw for open forum. If people have comments they want to make, or a delegation, they can register and have a little bit more time to provide comments if they've read the report and want to make something.
Councillor Van Berkel?
Yes. I agree with a report from staff, but when will that staff report come? Will it come within the next month, or 6 weeks, or 6 months from now?
Mr. Rayner? Should be asking Mr. Malcolm.
Thank you, Your Worship. Part of the challenge is that we are receiving the information tonight just as you are for the first time. So I'll actually throw the ball over into my colleague's court that says if you provide us with really detailed, comprehensive information that we can work through quickly, we'll be able to get it back to you real fast. If we get a bunch of silly emails, we're going to be a little while. So certainly, Councillor Van Berkel, we can report back to you with a timeline, even as early as next council meeting, just so you have a sense of what that timeline looks like. At this point, I just can't commit because I haven't seen the detailed information.
Yeah, thank you, and I understand that.
Councillor Waters?
Thank you, Your Worship. Can we, the report that comes back to us, is it going to just be particular to this technology, or as there might be other technologies? And like Mr. Reiner said, that we don't want to prejudice this company by focusing just on them, and they can't bid on it because it's their technology. So can we get a report back that looks at various technologies? And also, I wouldn't mind knowing, how does it compare to what we have and what's being planned for the existing sewage treatment plant in terms of the technology that's going on in there? How does it compare? So I think a more full report would be helpful, as opposed to a report which just outlines what we've seen tonight.
Your Worship, members of Council, certainly I think the short answer is yes. We'll be more broad than the new Terra solution. Thank you.
Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a point of order. I know this is a delegation, and generally there's a time limit on delegations. We also have a motion that's been amended that I don't see that's been duly moved nor seconded, and I just wonder if we should maybe wrap up, call the question, and continue on with the evening.
Councillor Nicol is always the one that keeps me in the procedural bylaw. Thank you, Councillor Nicol. So we need a mover and a seconder for the motion that is on the floor. Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Fowler. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. And I want to thank the presenters and thank you very much. It was really interesting and I really appreciate you coming here tonight and sharing with us. And I know you want this expedited, so I know you will share with staff as much information as quickly as possible, and so we can get this back. Thank you so much. Thank you, Council. So now we're moving on to item 7, which is the opportunity to speak regarding any associations or boards that you're on behalf of the municipality. So starting with County Council, Deputy Mayor, did you want to highlight anything special happening at County?
We had an active day at County Council on Tuesday. I'm just trying to bring up my notes. We're dealing with various issues. If I can ask the mayor to move on to somebody else, I'll bring my notes up. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have 2 Conservation Authority members here. If you had any updates from your CA meetings.
It's rather soon, as we've just sat in a general meeting and our first orientation, so workshop, so really no business to report on. But I would assume, unfortunately, the first meeting I'm missing because I'll be away in Florida next week. So after that, I will have something to report.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, sat in on the first meetings of the NVCA. Obviously elected a new board from Wasaga Beach, George Watson as chair. Vice chair was Keith White from ESSA, and from New Tech was Donna Jebb as second chair. Also thank the previous board, including, I did see previous chair Lougheed here, but I guess he's gone now. So that's it, just getting going. So.
Great, and I'm sorry if I'm putting anybody on the spot tonight. I didn't mean to, but this is generally in the meeting where you might have some update from if you're on the library board or if you're on the accessibility committee and there's something you want to bring forward. We added this because there's times when the minutes don't get to the board table or the council table for a series of weeks. So if there's something important that you want to highlight to your council colleagues, this would be your opportunity to do it. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, one of the things we dealt with was the Frederick Banting legacy in our community, and that I think we're coming up to the 125 year anniversary, and that we have something to be very proud of in this community, and we don't seem to really support it. So just Google the Fred Banting legacy and see what's happening to give thanks to a man that put Canada on the map. We also dealt with contributing a significant amount of money to the David Budsby Center for $700,000+ to finish the completion of their capital project, which is a little bit unusual, but I think it plays a key role in our community. And lastly but least, we dealt with a public education campaign on showing diversity with food in our communities throughout Simcoe County as it changes. And I thought it was fairly interesting. They had food from various diverse cultures there, which was tasty. Actually, it was better than the other food we had. So yeah, that was County Council this weekend, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Waters.
I can't report on one thing is that the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority does have a new chair in Wayne Emerson, who's the current chair of York Region, and Scott McPherson from Oro-Medonte is the new vice chair.
Thank you so much. Anyone else with any reports from any boards or authorities? Thank you very much. So we're moving on to the consent agenda. So for those of you who haven't sat through sounds a little like a bingo game sometimes, but we'll go through the list of items. If people have comment, they can comment on their item. If they're happy and satisfied with the staff report and there's silence, then we will just confirm the action and all the recommendations at the end once we've gone through them all. So, and then of course, if council wants to debate further or perhaps amend the recommendation, we will pull that item and put it on committee of the whole and have further discussion on that. So we'll start with item A1, which is the special council meeting minutes. of January 9th. A2, the regular council meeting minutes dated January the 9th. A3, the special council minutes dated January 15 and 16. Those were our budget days. A4, the special council minutes dated January the 30th. Next, under various committees, B1, the Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee report from November. B2, the Audit Committee report from January the 29th. There are no standard requests, so we'll move to staff reports. The first staff report is D1, and it's regarding Friday Harbor lease agreement amendments. The next staff report is the Alcona Capital Block 148, request to lift the holding provision. D3, adoption of bylaw to receive gas tax funds. That's not just a good news story, that's a great news story. D4, staff report proposed amendments to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. I did have one comment or question, I guess, on that to Mr. Kane or Mr. Pentikainen. The county also yesterday adopted comments to go to the ministry or to be posted on the EBR regarding the growth plan amendments, and I wondered if staff had seen a copy of those, and if so, is there anything contrary between the county comments and our own comments?
Yes, just to respond to that, Mayor Dolan. We have been in consultation with county staff as they are drafting up those comments, so I believe that we are simpatico and generally in agreement with those. I haven't seen the final comments yet. I'm not sure if we have, but we have been speaking with staff and have been coordinating a response accordingly.
Thank you very much. Next item is D5. That's the staff report regarding the 2019 and 2020 budget update. No comments. Okay, so that's going to be coming then for final recommendation to the next council meeting. D6, that's South Simcoe Police Services 2019 cost sharing ratio and 2019 operating capital budget. D7, substance abuse prevention policy amendments. This was generally sorting out or updating our policies based on the fact that that cannabis is now legalized. D8, statutory holidays for 2019, including New Year's Day 2020 and holiday closure. There's no bylaws. So under correspondence for action, F1, correspondence from Innisfil Community Events Corporation, pledged to contribute to the fundraising portion of the building. Councillor Orsetti.
I just want to make a comment on that with regards to the letter that we've received from ICE Corp, and it seems to be some surrounding or based on social media comments about the money that was going to the rec center. And I just wanted to point out that Innisfil Community Events Corporation, this is their 25th anniversary of volunteering in the town this year, so they should be commended for doing that. But I see the money, it's different than a corporation or a developer who is doing a contract or a capital building debenture. And this is a pledge by a group of volunteers who host an annual events to benefit the community. And they take their profits and they give it back to the town and many charities. And it's unfortunate that social media tends to want to tear people and organizations down, and I wanted to point out that they should be applauded and thanked for their efforts, and reminding those that this is a pledge that they're doing and a donation. And I think the report had mentioned it's about $135,000, and ICE Corp gives the money to the town decides where that money goes.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Any other comments? Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. I did have a comment and just a quick question. I might, obviously, there was some concern and implications why the pledge this elsewhere. It makes sense to support the new initiatives of the town. And quite honestly, as Councillor Sadi said, ICE Corp, does so much for this community. Santa Claus Parade, the Polar Bear Dip, the Rib Fest, all of these great activities that wouldn't happen in this town. And I don't go on to social media, so I don't see all the negative things that go on, but people should be ashamed of themselves to be tearing apart volunteers that are doing such great things for the community. So my only question is, I do see some ICE Corp members here. Are there still pledges available for the Polar Bear Dip? Because I know that Councillor Simpson used to do it, and I think my heart might be strong enough to finally get back to doing it. So, so just thinking about it anyways.
I also know that there was a certain CAO that was thinking about doing it too. So maybe we will get some more people out to the Polar Bear Dip. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Worship. I'll just say the same things, that it's always nice to have a group of volunteers who dedicate time that they probably don't have to a good cause in Innisfil. So I'd like to congratulate them on all the great work that they've done. Aside from that, I was just wondering whether or not in point 4, which may have created some of the problems in terms of their contributions, is complete, whether or not that statement could be furthered by saying that that future donations will be designated by the town of Innisfil that come from ICE Corp, which would, further that statement. It seems kind of abrupt and stops. That maybe we just clarify that a little bit would be helpful.
Thank you. I'll go around the table and come back to you if you have an amendment that you'd like to propose, or I'm sure staff would be able to help you with that. Whose hand did I see? Sorry, Councillor Fowler.
This is
just one moment. Sorry, clerks always comes first.
Thank you, Worship. Just if we want to make an amendment to suggest we pull and into the committee.
Still in committee. Yeah. Thank you so much. We're still in committee, folks. So we're going to refer this to committee of the whole. Or we're still in council. We're going to refer this to committee, and we'll have further discussions on it at that time. Councillor Ices.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I was a little bit asleep at the switch there. I'm fighting a cold a little bit. I would like to pull D5 with regards to the budget. I don't want to crash the parade, but I did want to discuss the item 4 regarding the rural roads striping.
Thank you, and we're happy to do that, Councillor Ices. You get at least a 6-month buy on missing on this, so we're good. So it's D5 and F1. Okay, now we go to the correspondence list. F1 is pulled by Don Orsatti. Okay, so the correspondence list. G1, the accessibility status report. I did have one question on that, and whether or not this was vetted through or considered by the accessibility committee. Do we, oh, there's Amanda. Yes, Amanda.
Hi, thank you, Your Worship. So this report's put together in collaboration with a cross-functional team. So there's input from that committee as well as clerks. So Kim Creamer plays a role in the preparation of the report as well, who's very, as you know, involved with the IAAC, and also a number of town departments give input on the report in terms of what initiatives are taking place.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. G2 is a memorandum of the drainage supervisor. I, again, don't need to pull this. I just wish to let everybody know that we'll be discussing this further at the next council meeting, and You all received your mega binders, and those, so everybody who's benefiting in the drain will receive a what are they called? USB stick with all the information on it, and we'll be able to see or request a hard copy if required. And if you want to know why we're not mailing out 1,000 hard copies, did somebody want to show what one hard copy looks like? So that's why you're going to get a UBC stick instead of a binder. But certainly if you're not computer literate, or if there's some way you want to see that material, we will accommodate anyone that we need to. Next item is G3, which is the capital project for the Lockhart Road. G4, South Simcoe Police Service Board membership. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to provide a clarification on the memo that in consulting with the province, they provided information on how they make their appointments, but they do not weigh in on how we make our appointments. And then when referring to a new appointment, that does not preclude reappointment of the existing members.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's been brought to Council's attention, I think it was Councillor.
Do we want to pull it?
I think we'll pull it, okay. Thank you. G1. G4.
G4. Thank you. Next are proclamations. There's several of them. Eating Disorders Awareness Week. G2, the Heart and Stroke Request for Proclamation on Congenital Heart Disease Awareness Day. That was a rather sad letter if you read that letter from the Street family and the young girl that is struggling there. G7 is Ontario Heritage Week. G8 is Epilepsy Simcoe County Purple Day, which is going to be March 26th this year. And in intergovernmental correspondence, G9, I'd like to pull, if I could please. That's the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing's Reducing Municipal Reporting Burden. And also I'd like to pull G10, which is the correspondence regarding the municipal voters list. G11, County of Simcoe media release about our approved budget. G12, Innisfil Public Library Board minutes dated December the 10th. And G13, In-Services Board of Directors meeting dated November the 28th. And just a reminder to council, based on the comments made at the January 30th meeting, that there may have been a couple of sets of minutes that didn't get to the council table. Those are all available at the deputy clerk's office and we'll make sure going forward that that they're put on the agenda in a timely manner. And finally, G14, regarding school bus safety, implementing the stop arm technology in our local schools. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. I don't know if I need to pull it necessarily, but I just wonder if we might ask staff or clerks to forward this to the Simcoe County Student Transportation Consortium for their consideration, as we don't have control over the school buses here in the town of Innisfil, but as they would be the ones to be in charge of that consideration anyways.
Thank you, Councillor, and I can tell you that AMO was quite engaged in this file, and that it was, the bill was passed, but so the province is, but they haven't come out with the regulations yet. So it will be moving forward in some form, but we'll wait to see what those regulations are. Next, H1, appointment to the South Simcoe Streams Network. And a big thanks to Deputy Mayor Dan Davidson for putting his name forward. H2, the filing of the final engineer's report for the South Innisfil Creek Drain 2019 improvements. Councillor Nicol.
Again, I don't need to poll, just a comment. Obviously, I've already lifted the binder once. I'm thinking almost 20 years and 5 councils later, finally looking forward to getting through this report. And glad I read away that I'm saving thousands or many dollars anyways by not mailing out 900,000 pages to the affected residents. So definitely looking forward to getting that USB stick working. Thanks.
Thank you. I guess I jumped the gun on that one, sorry. All right, so that's everything. So now we need a recommendation that the consent list, all of the recommendations that were there, with the exception of the ones that we're pulling and referring to committee, are approved. And that will be moved by Councillor, no, we're missing some. Councillor Nicol.
Never mind, it's there.
Okay, so is everybody's item that they pulled there? Good, okay. A mover and a seconder then? Councillor Payne and Councillor Van Berkel, all in favor? That's carried. Mover and a seconder to resolve into committee the whole. Councillor Fowler, Councillor Ices, all those in favor? That's carried. And I just want to do a time check with everybody. It's 8:48. Are we good to keep going, or did you need a short break? We're good? Okay. Thank you. So, committee of the whole items. The item 9.1, sorry, that was a new item. I had amended recommendation that I wanted to put forward on that one, and that was that the, if you could just add to that, and that the information be provided to the School Zone and Traffic Safety Committee. Would you move it for me, Councillor? And seconded by Councillor Nicol. I just thought that was kind of where it evolved, so I thought it was good that the circle closed and we send that information back. All in favor? That's carried. All right, Councillor Ices, D5.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship.
First, we need a mover and a seconder. So if you wanted to maybe propose an amendment, so if you wanted someone else to move it and second it, and then you can speak to it, would that suit you? So Deputy Mayor Davidson will move it, and Councillor Fowler will second it, and now you can speak to it.
Yeah, thank you. So the report is there about the cost to change our current level of service regarding roads in the town. So for the added, the way I read it, the added $35,000 cost to have all our roads in Innisfil have line paintings on them. I guess I would like to move that, make a motion to make that part of our 2-year budget. It is a small amount of money in the grand scheme of things, and I know we like to stick to the that 1% increase in the whole budget, so I would also move that we don't increase our total budget, and perhaps we could prioritize this item over another one to keep us at that level. So that would be my motion.
And for that amendment, you'd need a seconder, Councillor. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Davidson. Comments and questions? Councillor Nicol and Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Worship. I did have a couple of questions on this. My first concern probably was that we didn't already allocate for traffic calming, which we already did. So looking at the entire recommendation the way it is, I wonder if it is a waste adding a random $100,000 to the Innisfil Beach Park for improvements when we already have millions of dollars have been allocated towards the park and many projects that are coming up. With that as well, I have a concern that we're deferring 3 other projects just to make these amendments. Perhaps there might be some sort of friendly amendment to change the $100,000 towards Innisfil Beach Park, go towards the line painting, if that was Councillor Icey's wish to include that. And if there's an opportunity to reconsider the capital reserves for the traffic calming. As much as I think the traffic calming is a great thing, I think that's something we should be already doing. And again, taking $300,000 out of other projects to just earmark money is a bit of a concern to me. So I figured we would debate this in much greater, but obviously there's a new motion on the floor, so I'll just kind of wait to see where this goes.
Thank you. So just so I can keep straight, can we deal with that line painting piece first, and then we'll go to that other piece? Councillor Waters.
Yeah, just concerning the line painting, do we have a cost in terms of what that is? And I haven't. Do we have a cost for that? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Your Worship, members of council, so our operations department estimate the rural road line striping would be $35,000 a year. That's the annual cost. So I don't know what the total cost of our line painting program is, but this addition, this increased level of service would be about $35,000 every year. And they repaint, my understanding is the lines are repainted every year.
Thank you.
It's unfortunate that Mr. Inwood became ill today and couldn't be here. He sent his regrets. He had to go home. Is there?
Your Worship, members of council, Ms. Jenkins is also very familiar with the program and could comment. I appreciate we need to get her a bigger chair in the corner there.
I didn't even see you back there. Hi, Ms. Jenkins, did you want to comment on that? So the question, I guess, would be about the cost, but also if it's a rural road, would there be a requirement to do it every year? Or do you think, based on the volume of traffic, that they may be able to be done every other year?
Through your worship, my understanding from speaking with our operations department is in order to meet the minimum maintenance standards requirements, we have to do them every year. And so I think, I think that they do look at it on a case-to-case basis and reassess each year if there are lines that are okay and they're able to leave it for that year. But I believe they do them every year in order to meet those minimum maintenance standards.
Okay, any other comments or questions on the amendment that is put forward? Mr. Davis.
Your Worship, members of council, if I could suggest, I don't know, I mean, if this, whether this will fly or not, but if we wanted to do this as a pilot project, we could use tax rate stabilization reserve as a one-time item and then have staff report back for the 2020 budget. We have to come back to you with an update at that point anyway and report on the success and whether or not we have to repaint it every year, and then we'll deal with that $35,000 problem then potentially in 2020. Just a recommendation or a suggestion to get this pilot project going.
Yeah, Your Worship, I'm friendly to that amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. I think that's a great suggestion, and it'll allow us to, even if it has to be phased in, but the pilot project, I think, is the way to go, and it removes the burden from the taxpayer. Any other? Okay, so we're going to vote on the motion on the amendment, and that is a pilot project. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried.
Your Worship, members of council, is it possible to, for our purposes, to be clear that is to be funded from tax rate stabilization and not included in the operating levy?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you need that added? I thought that because we put the word pilot in there, that would be understood, but okay.
We made a note to add it, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, and Councillor Nickel, did you have another amendment?
Parks?
Your Worship, actually, I hadn't prepared anything in advance of this. I was anticipating that this would come through, but I just wonder that staff be directed to me. I would take the $100,000 out for each year for the for the Innisfil Beach Park improvements. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling through this because I'm just concerned about taking 3 projects out to put just earmark $300,000 for projects. So for me, if I were to amend this, I would take the number 2 right out completely, and actually 2 and 3 right out completely. So.
Councillor Orsatti, and do you have a seconder for that?
So we can get.
So it's seconded by Councillor Van Berkel and Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you. Just on that, Councillor Nickel, the $300,000 is the $100,000 for Innisfil Beach Road improvements is a one-time only. It's not an annual. The $100,000, because it is the $100,000 for the traffic calming is broken down. Excuse me. In the first year, 2019, $75,000 for marking signage. That's not going to do a lot for the town. And then 2020, the $100,000 for that, again, to be spread out through all the town, and that deals with the schools as well. So it's money that's stretched, and we asked in the budget for the staff to put this in the budget and to find items to remove to allow this to be in without increasing the budget, was my understanding.
Councillor Waters.
I agree with what Don just mentioned, is that, it was in the budget discussions, we did talk about where the money was. I think staff was going to be looking at one project that they were going to defer, so, and everyone was okay with that. And there's nothing better to be able to say to a committee is that there's money behind changes you make, as opposed to us saying, well, where are we going to find the money later on? So it's always nice to be able to, we don't spend the money, we don't spend it, but at least the money's there and we can do the projects that are necessary. So I agree with Don. I think we need to keep it the way it is.
I just want to make one comment too about the one project that was taken out, which was the sidewalk from Church to Saunders. I spoke to the chief librarian there and some of the visitors there on Saturday, and I was told by the chief librarian that there had not been a single complaint on that sidewalk not being there. It isn't really a road, it's a driveway into the library, and it was pulled out of the original plan just to cut down on costs. So they were quite comfortable with having that taken out. Councillor Nickel.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks for the clarification on that, because to me it was somewhat contradictory to be doing traffic calming and safety measures and then taking sidewalks out. So that would lead to a town facility. And quite honestly, even if it wasn't a complaint, I think a sidewalk to the library is probably still a beneficial thing to remain in the budget. So we'll let this go and see where it ends up, I guess. Thanks.
Mr. Rayner.
Thank you, Worship, members of council. I'm not sure if it assists, but I just wanted to make clear that our interpretation of this resolution is that council would still hold, for lack of a better phrase, the purse strings on the committee's decisions. So the committee will know that funds are allocated, but that they would not have expenditure approval to spend that 100,000 without coming back to council for confirmation of what those items are for.
Thank you. So on this amendment, then, we'll vote on that. So all in favor of the amendment? So the amendment is number, the last one on the screen, Councillor. Moved by Councillor Nicol and Van Berkel that clause 2 and 3 be removed. So could we just scroll back so the councillor can see what 2 and 3 are? There we go. So the motion is to remove clause 2 and 3. Are we ready to call the vote? Does anybody understand the motion?
So we're talking 2 and 3?
Okay. All in favor of the motion or the amendment? That's defeated. Are there any other motions to amend? Okay. So now do we need to go back to the motion as amended? So now we're voting on the motion as amended. All those in favor? Okay, people, stay with me here. Okay, so now what we're doing, because the one motion that Councillor Ices put forward, we agreed to, and the one that Councillor Nicol put forward was defeated. So now what we're doing is basically confirming that by going back to the original motion as amended and voting on that. So all in favor of the motion as amended? Opposed, if any?
I'm in favor.
Okay, so that was carried? Yeah. And it was carried unanimously because this is budget, so let's make sure we get that. Councillor, Mr. Rayner.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you. I think you were making the same point that I was about to, which is that we now understand that we have all of Council's input into the budget process, so we'll be bringing back the final approval on the 27th, your next Council meeting. But I hope it's not presumptuous to say that we will actually be readying tenders to issue on the 28th. So if there is anything else that you would like to amend to the budget, if you could let us know as soon as possible, because we'll be ready to go based on what we know today about the budget so that we can make the best of our tendering processes starting on February 28th. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you for that, Mr. Rayner. And what you will find out is this is very late for us. Normally, we're into approval of the budget by, it's usually November, isn't it, Mr. Davis? So this is quite late for us. So we're looking forward to getting it approved as soon as possible. So as the CAO said, if there's any burning desire to make any more changes, speak now. Okay, thank you. Next, Councillor Asadi.
Sorry, I don't mean to, go on and on about this, but just clarification, because in the budget time, we did ask for other items to be moved out off of the 2019-2020, such as the docking system. Do they have to be referenced in here? They don't. Thank you.
Mr. Davis.
Yeah, Your Worship and members of council, the motions that you passed at the 15th and 17th, we will incorporate those into the staff report that we bring back to you. So all of those other adjustments that you already directed staff to do will be incorporated.
Thank you.
Thank you, and for anybody watching, and just please be patient with us. We're a new council, and we're still getting our feet underneath us, but it was good conversation, so thank you for that. So moving forward is the Ice Corp. Councillor Asadi.
My asking who pulled it put my name there. I presume it's seconded by Councillor Waters, who was suggesting an amendment, and I'm not sure if an amendment in regards to the further contributions. Sorry, losing my voice here, but I'll just leave that open for discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Sadi. I'd forgotten who was requesting that. Councillor Waters.
Yeah, so I was just looking to clarify point 4 in terms of that Ice Corp is still going to be fundraising, and those monies are at discretion of council. Just so as opposed to saying it's complete, as some people may have taken that they're no longer fundraising. So I just want to make sure that people know that that's the case. So if we can just
And could I ask for a friendly amendment there that we make some comment about and gratefully received, or very much appreciated, something along those lines? With gratitude, maybe, or something. Just something to let them know that we don't just expect them to do it, that we're grateful for them for doing it. Councillor Nicol?
Thank you, Worship. Just wanted to clear that up. After Recreation Complex, it was complete. The contribution was complete. And my only comment on the revised recommendation is that at council's discretion, I don't know why ISCOR wouldn't have the discretion to determine what they want to fundraise towards. Why should it be up to us to say thank you and we're going to put it towards this? I think it should be ISCOR's. If they're donating it, they should be able to put it where they want in the community.
If I can just say, it was just because it was in their letter that I think it said that town council had the discretion to do with what we wanted. So that's where I got that from. So that's where it wasn't something different. Yes.
Councillor Sadi.
Yes, I was, my understanding that the committee, Ice Corp, was making donation to the town. I know that they targeted certain things before in the past, I believe accessibility equipment, whatever, but they're giving the money, and I'll look to our CAO for clarification, or a member from Ice Corp, but they're donating money to the town, they're giving it to the town, and is it the town then determining where they want to put that money, or Ice Corp should have, if there's something specific, be able to do that.
Mr. Rayner.
Your Worship, members of council, we certainly do issue tax receipts for donations, and they usually are associated with a specific purpose. So certainly past practice is that Ice Corp decides where to allocate their funds. Certainly that would be acceptable. We would, if we receive a donation that we don't know what to do with, we certainly would be bringing it to council. But I think in terms of expediency, it probably makes sense for Ice Corp to provide that direction in future. I think that would be helpful.
Deputy Mayor Davidson, and then we'll look to maybe rework that. Thank you.
Okay, in reading what's put forward here, I have a concern. I think the debt of Ice Corp, or the pledge to Ice Corp, from Ice Corp to the rec center, the IRC, is about $125,000. It's a pledge that was made. I would like to see that pledge completed, not moved, because if it's removed, it's basically any pledge that we get goes back into the ARS funds. A pledge was made to the IRC, therefore I think the money should be directed. Here we're saying in number 3 that is resolved that council redirects Ice Corp's contribution received blah 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 in the amount of $25,000 to the Rizzardo Health and Wellness Center fundraising. But why not pay off one debt first? If I'm going to buy a car and then I'm going to go buy a boat, I'm not going to stop paying for my car because I bought my boat. So I'm saying that we need to make sure that let's pay off that debt, or council's discretion is to pay it, decide where it goes. I think we should pay off that pledge first, $125,000, not be moving it over to a new pledge area. It just doesn't make sense, or it doesn't set precedent. I understand that with the Rizardo Health Center, you're signing a contract when you make a pledge. Current people who are pledging are signing a contract. This was not done with the IRC back in that day. However, ISCOR does have a responsibility to get money back into the ARS funds. And I think I'm asking ISCOR to be clear, or council be clear, that we pay that pledge/debt down first and not let it hang forever in the ARS funds. That's all. Thank you.
Councillor Sadi.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. Davis for clarification on that, because my understanding is that the donations to the combination of all the donations, whether it was development charges, donations, and ARS, all went into the ARS funding. So it doesn't, I mean, it's a purse. So it's not assigned. Yes, they made a pledge. It's volunteers collecting money based on how, just like the economy, every year to donate money. So sometimes they can, like anything, the Rotary or any organization, they're donating money. They're not a company that signed a contract with us. So I'm just going to ask for Mr. Davis for clarification on how donations go into the ARS. Does it have to stay? My understanding is it does not have to stay for the rec center, because that has been cleared up. If maybe you could enlighten us on this, and I have a recommended change to the amendment.
Your Worship and members of council, so, you know, when the IRC, when it was first concept, right, there was fundraising, there was a variety of revenue sources, but these were pledges, no different than walkathons and all kinds of things where you pledge, but you may not get the money. So what happened, obviously, the facility, great facilities built, a number of years went by. Some of the pledges were over a period of time. I believe Ice Corps was never intended to be upfront. It was going to be over a period of years. We had some major donors. What we did from an accounting perspective, because the building was finished, all the expenses paid, and was operational, we funded anything that was remaining of all the pledges from ARS funds. So we did have development charges and other funding sources, but any of those pledges were funded from ARS. So from an accounting perspective, the facility's closed, our books are closed. So any money that's been coming in over the years as those pledges are being recognized, we've returned those funds to ARS. So certainly, you know, any funds that would come in to this pledge, even though it's not fully completed, we would just turn around and put them back into ARS funds, and they'd be used for whatever purposes that are recommended to council. So yes, any money we receive is bonus and great money to have, and certainly we can use all of the donations and funds. It doesn't pose a financial risk to us. We're not factoring in that we would still receive those monies. We've already accounted for the money coming out of ARS, so it's not impacting us in any regard in that manner.
Councillor Nicol, and then we'll go back to Councillor Sadi.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I think that going through all the information that we had, it was clear that Ice Corp has already confirmed their pledge and their continued support and future support for the community. So I was going to provide a revised recommendation or a friendly amendment, but I think I'll leave it to Councillor Sadi to put it in her words. So I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Sadi.
I'm just looking at number 4, and it's really the donations coming to the town. They make the checks payable to the town of Innisfil. The town of Innisfil can then choose to put it in the ARS or the other, unless an organization such as Ice Corp or any group, the Rotary, Lions Club, or anything. But just that number 4, it should be that any future contribution be received with gratitude. This is a donation. Why are we getting so, you know, it's money being fed into the town as a goodwill gesture, and we're dicing it up too much.
Well said, Councillor. So can we now, and it's moved and seconded by, you're okay with the change, Councillor? Okay, all in favor of the recommendation? Opposed, if any? One opposed, that's carried. Next is the South Simcoe Police Service Board membership, G4. And that was Councillor Davidson, Deputy Mayor Davidson, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just pulled that because I remember Councillor Sadi speaking with me with some concerns to that matter, but I've read the letter and I understand there will be a process held in April or May. It just seems to be a little bit delayed over a usual process. Usually when council's elected, this process is done fairly quickly, but I understand there was one cancellation because of weather. So I just hope that the decision is made soon and that Innisfil gets its fair shot at it. Thank you.
Councillor Sadi?
Yes, Your Worship, mine as well, question was going to be whether the, because I know the appointment is after provincial appointments, and would it be expected to be changed at that time? So if there was another letter, I apologize. I haven't read the additional correspondence that you're referring to, Deputy Mayor Davidson, or are you referring to the one that's in here, in our documents?
He was referring to the one that you're looking at, G4.
Right. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Just trying to find that.
Could we have a seconder for that recommendation, Councillor Payne? So I would encourage at this point anyone who knows people who would be interested in sitting on the Police Services Board to go to the Public Secretariat website and apply through the province to be on that board. We have 2 provincial appointments that are coming to the end of their term in April and May. And the process, I understand, can draw out. There's been complaints by other municipalities that it takes very long for those seats to get filled, which I believe was the concern about why they also didn't want to have a new rep on at the very same time, because it could leave us in a spot where I'm brand new, the 2 provincial reps are brand new, the Innisfil rep is brand new, and the only person on the board that has any experience is the mayor of Bradford. So I think that was what we're trying to avoid. Did you have something to add, Mr. Rayner?
Your Worship, members of council, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a request from Bradford West Gwillimbury in the event that the provincial appointees are renewed to ask council to consider allowing Bradford to have another appointment in order to ensure geographic distribution on the board if the 2 provincial appointees are residents of Innisfil. I don't think you need to deal with that right now because that's we don't know yet, but I wanted to flag it for you, Your Worship, while this matter is before council.
Yeah, so by saying that, I would say that we have had more representation than we should have because there was 2 provincial appointees, one from Bradford, one from Innisfil, and then the Bradford one moved to Innisfil. So we've had lots of representation, and so hearing or seeing no more questions, we'll call the question on receiving that. All in favor? That's carried. I'd be looking for a mover for, what I wanted to do here was change the recommendation and allow, this is the correspondence from Municipal Affairs, and that correspondence from Municipal Affairs and Housing be received, and that staff prepare some options and for consideration of the ministry to reduce the reporting burden. So I wonder if, would you second that, Councillor Nicol? Or actually, if you'd move it and I'll second it, how's that? Am I allowed to? Yeah, I am. Okay. I just wanted to point out this because this is something that municipalities have been asking for a long, long time. The number of reports that are required to be sent are quite cumbersome for municipalities, and we quite often wonder if anybody at the other end ever even looks at them after we spend all the time preparing them. So just to receive it, and I know particularly Minister Clark is really seized with this, and he's taking it very seriously. And I also know he gets upset that he only hears from people who are against things, and he never gets people saying, great idea, way to go. So I think participating in this process and giving him some ideas on where he could save us some, and particularly staff, lots of paperwork, it would be a good opportunity. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And then another one, and what I wanted to change on this is to add, and that council endorse, provide correspondence that we endorse that we agree that the municipal voters list needs work. And I'm getting lots of movers and seconders on this one. So Councillor Van Berkel and Councillor Nickel. And I think this is self-explanatory.
Your Worship, members of council, while the clerks are working on that, I just want to clarify for the previous motion, we're okay to send those options along to the minister's office and just copy council, or are you hoping for that to come back to a report to council?
I'll say, and then I'll go with, I don't know what all the burdens are. I know you guys know them way more than we know them, so please feel free and just copy us if that okay with council? And can we ask for a vote on this? All in favor? That's carried. And the RISE recommendation. Mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Ices. That moves us back into formal council session from Committee of the Whole. And now the recommendation to approve the resolutions that we did in Committee of the Whole, moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Asadi. All in favor? That's carried. Notice of motion. Is there any notice of motion? I'm seeing none. Announcements from members of council. Any announcements? Councillor Ices.
Yeah, Your Worship. It was interesting to hear from Deputy Mayor Davidson about the $700,000 for the David Busby Center coming from the town. I spent an afternoon at the Innisfil Food Bank, and I got a rundown of all the wonderful work that they're doing for those less fortunate in our community. And for the month of January, they distributed 88 boxes of food, which would support 250 people. So I'm glad to hear that the county is helping out with homeless in our neighboring community, and I think any way that we can help groups like the Innisfil Food Bank, we should try and do that. So.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Nickel.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of things. I'm sure Terry doesn't need to know where I was last week or whatever else, but obviously gone through the NVCA orientation. As the council put their faith in me to sit as acting mayor, it wasn't to just sit there with the gavel. It was actually to do some emergency management training. So I've already gone through my first course with the county of Simcoe. So just to let you guys know that. I have other stuff coming up as well too. But last week I did spend a few hours at the county going through some emergency management, and I have many more hours to go. So I'm taking the faith you put in me as acting mayor seriously, and making sure I'm prepared in case we have some emergencies where the mayor and deputy mayor are unavailable to assist, or at least give them some time to rest if something does come up. So. Did attend the grand opening of the Cookstown Rink along with the mayor, Councillor Ices, Councillor Payne, and Councillor Van Berkel. My son got to enjoy some great times on the ice, and fortunately didn't get a hot dog. and did enjoy the time on Sunday with the meeting with council for the couple of hours. So that was it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else have any announcements? Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to thank Councillor Nicol for all his hard work of shoveling the ice on the weekend. Great job. And I think we discussed the possibility of getting a little mini Zamboni for the rink if we could find the money in the budget. Anyway, but it was a good day. There was a lot of people there. Also, I want to thank all of the residents that showed up for the council's open house on the weekend. We had a great turnout, and it was nice to talk to all the residents on a nice, quiet day. Also, I just want to remind people that on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, February 16th, 17th, and 18th, that the Friday Harbor Family Day weekend is going to be on, and there's the daily activities for the whole family, so it'll be a fun day. Hopefully the weather stays good. And on Saturday, February the 16th, there's also the Fire on Ice Winter Extravaganza put on, and I believe that's in your ward. Is that? Ward 2. Ward 2? Yeah, it's down in, your way. So yeah, they're looking, and it sounds like there's going to be a fishing derby and the whole business. So hopefully, again, it's going to be a nice day. And again, February 23rd is the Ice Core Polar Dip, and I will put my name down for $50 to the first person who gives me their sheet that wants a sponsor. Thank you very much.
Any other announcements from members of council? Councillor Zadi.
I won't go on about the different training events that we've attended in public open houses, but just listening to Councillor Ices and the food bank, with tomorrow being Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's to everyone. But I'm going to put a challenge out to council to go out and do a random act of kindness tomorrow. And maybe that's a donation to the food bank or to a senior or a child. So, and I'll be curious to hear those challenges, and I'll let you know what I'm doing. I think my husband and I are doing a date over at Lakeside Retirement, handing out carnations.
Very nice, and certainly the Rizzardo Health and Wellness Center could use some helping hands too. Mr. Rayner.
Thank you, Worship, members of council. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our amazing operations team who I think at this point are now working on 24 hours, if not longer, of continued snow removal and effective winter control maintenance. So I appreciate all of their hard work, and we appreciate all of the residents' patience. We've had, because of the blowing snow, we've had to move back into arterial roads several times off of the smaller streets. So we appreciate their patience as we continue to work towards that, and we're hoping that we'll be having some spring at some point soon.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner, and please pass on our thanks to the staff. I can tell you I did really appreciate the snowplow tracker over the last 24 hours when residents would phone me and say they didn't have a snowplow on their street. I could say, well, actually you did, and it was at 7:45 and 40 seconds. So it's just wonderful to have that tool, and then it gives them also the ability to make sure that, you know, if they say if they haven't had a snow plow because they are on arterial roads, they know their neighbors didn't either, so they don't feel like just their street was missed. It's just a wonderful tool, and please pass that on. Any other announcements from council? I just, I won't go through a whole list of events because there's been so many since we've been here, just to say it's just a wonderful, it's wonderful going to all of these events, and I'm just enjoying that part of the job so very much, and really appreciate all of the people who came out to the open house, and I think it showed me that we can, we're going to need to do more of those. I will, though, just quickly say thanks also to the staff for organizing all that, because we call it a council open house, but quite frankly, we walk in and do nothing. Staff have already been here, they've got the food organized, they've got the stuff on the walls, they've organized all the events and put up all the chairs and tables. And so to them, a big thank you for all of the work that goes into before we show up. And yes, and finally, did one event I will talk about. I had the pleasure Sunday afternoon to go to a very special birthday party for a very special lady, our friend, former Mayor Hazel McCallion, who turns 98 years old tomorrow. Her son put on an open house for her on Sunday, and it was wonderful to help her celebrate. So.
Did you see her walk the wall?
Yeah. So now the confirming bylaw, moved by Councillor Ices and seconded by Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? And adjournment. Councillor Nicol and Councillor Van Berkel. We adjourn at 9:32. Thank you very much, Council. That was a heady agenda. We do still have to go back and finish our closed session. So if we could just maybe take 2 minutes, sooner we get into there, sooner we get